At 61, Courtney Love finally said their names, 9 musicians who shaped her life through chaos and memory. Within hours, headlines caught fire. Fans tore through old interviews and songs, chasing the truth she'd buried for years. So what pushed her to reveal everything after decades of silence and tension? Let's uncover the story she once swore she'd never tell.
Courtney wouldn't have been Courtney and still be Courtney if the raw talent wasn't part of that equation.
Right.
Let's start things off with number 9. Trent Reznor. Every time Courtney talked about Trent Reznor, her tone shifted half admiration, half warning. Their worlds collided in the mid-90s when both were climbing toward artistic chaos. He was the mastermind behind 9 Inch Nails, the man who turned pain into rhythm. She was the wild heart of Hole, already living on the edge of every headline. Together, they felt like gasoline meeting fire. Their connection began in 1994 after the success of Live Through This. Reznor invited her to the studio during the Downward Spiral era, an album that sold over 4 million copies in the US alone. People close to them said their conversations stretched for hours, mixing music, obsession, and exhaustion. Courtney once described him as brilliant, cold, and impossible to predict. That unpredictability fascinated her, but the friendship cracked fast. By 1995, rumors about their fallout ran wild. Reznor later called her toxic energy, while she accused him of betrayal in a radio interview. Yet years later, she admitted his music still haunted her: the structure, the brutality, the control. So, his silence became part of her story, a wound that never healed but kept her sharp. But the next man didn't vanish into mystery. He stayed visible, emotional, and wrote her name in songs long before fame found them both. Now, at number 8, Billy Corgan. Courtney once said Billy Corgan spoke in melodies, not sentences. Their story began long before the spotlight back in 1989, when both were still unknowns bouncing between Chicago's underground clubs. He was forming the Smashing Pumpkins. She was carving her own name through chaos and ambition. What started as long nights writing songs turned into something strange. A friendship wrapped in rivalry. They passed around notebooks filled with half-written lyrics and phrases like love letters. Courtney later admitted she helped him shape the early edge of Gish in 1991, the record that first put Corgan's band on MTV. In return, he gave feedback on Hole's early tracks, especially Pretty on the Inside. It was mutual obsession, creative and dangerous. By 1994, when Corgan's Siamese Dream exploded to 4 million copies sold, everything shifted. Courtney was with Kurt Cobain, and Billy's quiet envy turned into distance. Rumors spread that he wrote parts of Celebrity Skin years later, and he confirmed in 2014, "I helped her shape it, sure, but she's rewriting history now." Their friendship kept flipping between love, loyalty, and bitterness. Yet, Courtney once said, "He understood my kind of chaos better than peace." That line stuck because Corgan always seemed drawn to her storms. This is why he became the melody that never settled, the one she couldn't tune out. But the next man didn't write her story. He fought her in public, on stages, and in courtrooms, yet somehow never truly let her go. Coming in at number 7, Dave Grohl. Courtney and Dave Grohl shared a history that felt like a constant tug-of-war between anger and admiration. After Kurt Cobain's death in 1994, everything between them turned personal. Dave had started Foo Fighters, trying to rebuild something from the ashes of Nirvana. Courtney, meanwhile, was still carrying the weight of both grief and spotlight. They were tied together by memory, music, and lawsuits. In 2001, the legal battle over Nirvana's royalties exploded. Courtney accused Dave and Chris Novoselic of freezing her out. Dave fired back, calling her claims a sad rewrite of truth. Yet, behind those court papers, something more human kept showing up. They shared the same loss. By 2012, things took a wild turn. At a New York afterparty, Courtney got on stage and yelled at Dave mid-performance, accusing him of stealing Kurt's legacy. It made global headlines the next morning. But months later, Dave extended an olive branch. In a BBC interview, he said, "She's been through hell. We all have that moment softened years of public hate." Fans noticed when, in 2014, they were seen at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame ceremony. No hugs, no words, just a nod. But that nod felt heavier than an apology. However, their energy never disappeared. It shifted from war to quiet recognition. He became the living reminder of what she lost and what she survived. But the next name on her list carried a very different tone. A man who didn't fight her, didn't save her, but showed her what calm could look like in the middle of chaos. Here's number 6. Eddie Vedder. Courtney always spoke about Eddie Vedder differently. There was no fire, no shouting, no chaos. He entered her story like a quiet song in a room full of noise. Their paths crossed in 1993, right when 10 had turned Pearl Jam into one of the biggest rock bands in America, selling over 13 million copies. Courtney, with Live Through This rising, was living under the same grunge sky but in a completely different storm. Eddie fascinated her because he didn't play the fame game. While others leaned into drama, he hid from it. She once said, "He was what Kurt could have been if peace came first." That line said everything. Eddie represented balance, something she could never fully hold on to. They met during benefit concerts in Seattle, usually around 94 and 95, where their conversations circled around music, loss, and guilt. When Kurt died, Eddie sent a note, short and raw. No press, no cameras. Just a few words. "You're still here. That matters." That kind of silence hit deeper than sympathy. By the late 2000s, Courtney called him the calm before every storm I created. They never had a public feud, but they carried an invisible link, one built on survival. But the next man on her list was the complete opposite. He didn't offer calm or peace. He gave her danger, headlines, and a story that burned for years across MTV screens and backstage walls in 1992. Now, at number 5, Axl Rose. Courtney and Axl Rose were built from the same storm, loud, unpredictable, and always 2 seconds from explosion. Their story hit the public eye hard in 1992, backstage at the MTV Video Music Awards. Cameras caught it all, the insults, the shouting, and Axl warning Kurt to keep his woman in line. That moment froze a decade of rock drama into one viral clip before viral even existed. Axl was at the height of his power then. Guns N' Roses had sold over 28 million copies of Appetite for Destruction. Courtney had just released Hole's Live Through This. Fame put them on the same floor, but in opposite rooms, both rebels, both allergic to control. After that night, tabloids chased every word they threw. Courtney later admitted she was terrified of him, yet drawn to that danger. In a 2005 interview, she said, "He scared me, and I liked that." Axl ignored her for years, but privately sent her a message through a mutual friend. "We're more alike than either of us want to admit." That one line rewired how fans saw them, two icons who never found peace, only sparks. But the next name on her list didn't fight her at all. It was a woman who sang her pain back to her years later, in a song that sold over 6 million copies and made Courtney feel like she was hearing her own ghost. Sliding into number 4, Lana Del Rey. When Lana Del Rey sang Heart-Shaped Box during a 2012 concert in Sydney, it hit Courtney Love like a cold memory crashing back. That song was Kurt Cobain's letter to her, and hearing another woman sing it on stage pulled something deep and unfinished to the surface. Courtney tweeted that night, "You do know that song is about my vagina, right?" The internet went wild. Lana stayed silent, but that silence said everything. It was as if 2 generations of sorrow had just collided in one lyric. Years later, in 2015, they finally met in person. Courtney didn't show up angry. She showed up curious. She told Lana, "You sing like you've already seen everything that scares me." Lana laughed, then invited her to open a few shows on her Endless Summer Tour. That tour sold over 450,000 tickets across the US, and fans saw something rare: 2 women from different eras, standing on the same stage, haunted by the same ghost. Their bond was strange but real. Courtney said later, "She's me before I got broken." Lana called her the original. It wasn't mentorship, it was reflection. And while that connection ran deep, the next man on her list was the one she never escaped, the one whose shadow followed her through every stage light and every lyric since 1994. Reaching number 3, Kurt Cobain. Every name before this one felt like a memory, but Kurt Cobain was her history. Their connection started in 1991. The same year, Nevermind exploded, selling over 30 million copies worldwide and rewriting rock forever. Courtney met him backstage in Portland, both high on the same kind of chaos fame that didn't feel earned and pain that couldn't be shared. They were married by February 1992 in Hawaii, barefoot on the beach, with 8 people watching. Within a year came their daughter, Frances Bean, and the press firestorm that turned into survival mode. Vanity Fair ran a cover story accusing Courtney of using heroin while pregnant, a piece that haunted her career for years. She later said, "That one article made me a villain before I even knew I was famous." By April 1994, the story reached its tragic break. Kurt was gone, and Courtney became the face of every unanswered question in rock history. Every song she released after From Doll Parts to Malibu carried him somewhere between anger and love. Fans still debate her every lyric, looking for guilt or grief hidden in the lines. In 2014, she approved the documentary Montage of Heck. It revealed parts of Kurt's home footage, their letters, even the awkward laughter between fights. She didn't appear much in it, but her silence filled every frame. Years later, when asked if she ever stopped hearing his voice, she said, "No, it just got quieter." The next person she named didn't share her past, but helped her live with it, a musician whose loyalty outlasted the chaos, and whose quiet support turned into something the tabloids never saw. Now at number 2, Michael Stipe. When everyone turned away, Michael Stipe stayed. He met Courtney in 1994, just weeks after Kurt's death, when most of Hollywood avoided her. Reporters hunted her, fans blamed her, and executives cut her calls short. But Stipe didn't disappear. He called her every week, sent handwritten letters, and even flew to Los Angeles during the worst of her breakdowns. He was already a legend with R.E.M., whose album Automatic for the People had sold over 18 million copies by then. Fame gave him reach, but he used it quietly. He once said, "I just wanted her to stay alive." Courtney later admitted he was the one who kept her from falling off the edge completely. In 1995, they tried to collaborate on a side project, a joint album that never came out. She told Rolling Stone, "Michael wanted me to sing clean. I wanted to bleed on tape." The sessions collapsed, but their friendship held. He became godfather to Frances Bean, and one of the few people she still speaks of with warmth. By 2006, when Courtney entered rehab for the 3rd time, Stipe showed up again, no cameras, no public statement, just quiet loyalty. She said, "He never judged me, even when I deserved it." He represented the one bond that fame couldn't twist. While others came for her headlines, he came for her peace. But the final name on her list shocked even her fans, a woman who once threw a shoe at her during the 1995 MTV VMAs, then years later, offered a compliment that changed everything. The two queens of controversy standing face to face, and one saying, "You could have ruled the world." And finally, at number 1, Madonna. Few stories in music felt as explosive as Courtney Love and Madonna's brief collision. Their first public clash happened live during the 1995 MTV Video Music Awards. Courtney crashed Madonna's backstage interview, throwing a compact and a shoe toward her while shouting into the mic. The clip replayed across MTV for months, drawing over 10 million viewers that night. The tabloids called it the War of the Queens. Madonna brushed it off with a smile, saying, "Courtney's got a lot of energy." But behind that smirk was fascination. They were both powerhouses who rewrote what fame looked like for women. Loud, defiant, and never asking for permission. A few years later, in 1998, their paths crossed again at a benefit event in New York. By then, Madonna had just released Ray of Light, which sold 16 million copies, and Courtney was rebuilding after rehab and lawsuits. Instead of a fight, they talked, quietly, for almost an hour. Courtney later said, "She was everything I wanted to beat, and everything I respected." In 2005, Madonna surprised her by inviting her to a private party in London. People who were there said they danced for hours and laughed about their MTV fight. The feud had turned into recognition. Before leaving that night, Madonna reportedly told her, "You could have ruled the world if you wanted." Courtney just smiled and replied, "Maybe I still can." The world remembers their chaos, but few knew they ended as allies. And that leaves one question hanging. After all these years, what did Madonna see in Courtney that the rest of Hollywood never did? Every word she shared felt like closing a chapter, yet the real ending still waits off screen. Click the next story before it fades and see what history tried to erase.